What's up, guys? Coach Gaglione here. This is another edition of our Return to Mr. America series. But this is actually the culmination of what is, calling an audible. So this is what we kind of ended up throwing together last minute. Myself, and you can see Steve Ruffin, among others, sign up for this kind of team competition. If you've been following along for a while, one of my side quest events was supposed to be a walked out squat, an overhead press, and a stiff bar deadlift, conventional deadlift. And myself and Steve Ruffin were supposed to kind of enter as a team, and the contest got canceled last minute. So it wasn't anything too serious, but we both were training for it. Both were kind of semi-peaked for it, and we didn't really want it to go to waste. So this is an opportunity to just kind of get some of the locals together for a training session, and ultimately that was, at the end of the day, what the goal was for doing this particular contest. Again, I've kind of stated before, 2023 was really like my last hurrah with really taking powerlifting like more ultra serious in terms of like the amount of time and energy I'm kind of putting into it, and the amount of time I was also just kind of everything. And again, I know that may seem like kind of odd as you're going to see me squat 804 pounds today, but I kind of surprised myself. But anyways, at this point, one of the things I'm really kind of talking about, and I've been trying to articulate into words, kind of our message and just kind of what my thoughts are in terms of powerlifting as a tool, how we should use it, what powerlifting for the people is all about. Powerlifting has done so much for me. It's one of the reasons why I coach it. It's part of our programming, regardless if someone is competing or not. I think it's a great way to kind of build general strength. And I think that it's important to have some element of competition. Now, what kind of gets tough here is when, again, like if you're using myself as an example, I've competed in 6 different weight classes. I've been as heavy as 340 pounds. And you can take things kind of too far. So, but it's one of those things where, like, if you're like kind of in it, you don't want to be kind of thinking like that as an athlete. But I think it's important for like kind of coaches to kind of understand, the ramifications of, doing certain things for athletes, in terms of frequency, in terms of loading, in terms of specificity. There's all like pros and cons and trade-offs. And I think I did a pretty good job of kind of getting out of powerlifting relatively unscathed, although the last several years I kind of, put on too much body fat. But overall, I'm feeling pretty good, relatively in good health. I've been, dealing with some things this past year and a half. But if I'm being completely honest, a lot of it is stress-related. A lot of it is just me just needing to get some other things in my life in order in terms of business, in terms of family, and just terms of, personal relationships. But anyways, balancing, doing the best I can. I'm human. At this time, right now we have 2 locations. We have our original location in Farmingdale, New York. Been kind of dealing with some, kind of issues there in terms of just having trouble managing things, if I'm being just completely honest. Like I said, nothing wrong. Like, I think our staff is great, our crew is great, but there's a lot of other things outside of just the X's and O's of training, as far as that we need to kind of consider. And it's definitely been hard, for me to kind of sell alone. Remotely, manage things remotely. But I really care about the community. I really care that like our family and friends have a place to train. And listen, there's a lot of, like, you could really do powerlifting anywhere. And the thing and you could have, like we have great equipment here. Like, this is a new IPF approved bench. But ultimately it's the people that make the place. And I think that like sometimes, people are kind of going for like the new and flashy thing, but you can kind of drive to like an influencer gym. You can kind of drive past a gym like this, but I think there's something special about working as a team. I think a lot of people, if you don't have that athletic background, you may not understand the importance of it, what you can kind of get from it. And you can kind of see here, as you can kind of see, everyone's kind of attentive. We're kind of going back and forth. Some people are squatting, some people are benching. We're kind of going back and forth. And the premise of today was to kind of see like who would have like the best SBD total, but we just kind of elected to kind of do this more as a team thing. So I gave some awards for some PRs. I gave some awards for the biggest lifts of the day. Surprise, surprise. But, Big Nick here had the biggest bench. He ended up with a 694, 315 kilo PR shirted bench. I ended up with an 804 squat. I think this is around like 740 or so. This was like, and this, I was going to kind of call it here, but you'll kind of see that this kind of blows up pretty good. I ended up doing a 365 kilo squat. And again, for me, like powerlifting, when I got started, like it was equipped lifting, and I just was trying to lift like the most amount of weight humanly possible. So you can kind of see here, 740 was really smooth. No issues with the monolift there. Very, very solid. And I've been walking out my squats. I haven't been using wraps. I haven't been squatting with a wider stance. So things were, not ultra specific, but it's just kind of interesting to see like just all the general training I've been doing, just kind of, not neglecting my accessory work, not neglecting my weak points. And I was able to, exceed my goal and then some. And then we have another local here, Rudy, is a really strong lifter. He just, I think, competed at the Ghost Clash, I believe. I think Steve ended up not really squatting great on this day, but I think he ended up with like a 675 squat, and he missed like a straight bar PR attempt of around something in like the 720 range. He was actually, I kind of talked him down to doing a little bit, but he ended up with a really good conventional deadlift. So just kind of, I think he ended up with like a 300, and you might not even be able to see there, but the bar was starting to kind of roll on his back a little bit. That's the other thing. We were also training with like power bar. So this is a 315 kilo bench attempt from Big Nick. He just absolutely smashed this out of the park. He's using that new Hansu Power bench, did really well here. So again, this was kind of like an impromptu thing for him. He's been also doing a lot of general training. He hasn't been in his shirt, but he's been working on his weak points. He's been working on kind of building up his raw strength up again, and he did great. And you can see this kind of, okay, maybe that was, that might have been, sorry, that was his last warm-up, which he kind of bobbled a little bit, and then he cleans up. You'll kind of see the 315 kilos. So that's the thing with like powerlifting gear too. It can be very temperamental if you're off a little bit, if your form is off. And this is John. I believe this might be John's last one, but he ended up with a PR. He had his first 315 bench, which is great. You can see he's got a really good technique. I wish I was able to kind of like do some of these self handouts and stuff, but my shoulders are really beat up at this point, but it's a great, if you can learn it. So you can kind of see there, he's able to kind of do that. And then Rudy was just doing some secondary benching on this day. So he was doing some feet up benching. So by doing the kind of Larson presses in this way, you could still get a good, you could still kind of keep your upper back extension. And this is my 804 attempt. Not the best angle here. I think you'll see a better angle later. But this was relatively comfortable. I think I had another 30 to 50 pounds in the tank. But this was so like far outside of what I thought I was going to do. But it just feels nice to be able to kind of handle 800. And like I said, originally, so we ended up kind of collectively totaling with all our best lifts well over 1,000 kilos. I think 1,015 between myself, Big Nick, and Steve. So that was pretty cool. So we kind of made it more of like a team challenge. One thing I wanted to showcase here was just how I was setting Big Nick's shirt. So again, it's not just a matter of just kind of putting this thing on and you're going to get like magical pounds. You have to learn how to use it. You have to learn how to set it properly. And there are people that can kind of take it too far, but I just wanted to kind of showcase like, this is why I think, equipped lifting, it always lended itself to crews. Like, again, you could do this by yourself, but it's just so much better to have someone else, even getting your singlet on, just like little things like that. So I just wanted to kind of showcase, some people might think it's annoying, whatever, but again, I think I like the fact if you kind of like, quote unquote, you don't really need help, but if if it requires a little bit more help, I think that's a positive. And like I said, monolift lifting, raw with wraps, equipped lifting, that's kind of like who we're catering to. And we're looking to kind of foster that crew mentality, that team environment. That's why we don't offer a 24-hour gym. That's why we don't have, you got to come at a specific time. You could choose convenience, you could choose excellence. So you can see here we had made some adjustments. I kind of talked him into it. I talked him down a little bit in terms of just getting his head right. So he smashed it out of the park. So this was Steve's miss. I think, I don't even know if he went like overly deep, but just like his intent out of the hole was not good. Again, I know he really wanted to get 6 reds on that squat bar and just didn't have a good drive out of the hole. And Steve's a real explosive lifter, and he kind of knew that just wasn't happening on that particular day. But here's John. This is John's PR attempt, and he even went out of his way to. He didn't want 314. He came for 315. So he even put the little chips on, just to make sure the kilo numbers were converting to our American 315 milestone. Anyways, so you can kind of see here that even though Steve had just missed his attempt, now he's kind of shifting to a training partner mode, and that's like what you need to do. You got to kind of move on. You got to have a short-term memory, and you got to go and help your team. So you can see that John was a little bit timid at touching his chest, but he got a good pause and was able to kind of fight through that and grind, and he was super pumped. And then, Steve was a little bit, he wasn't necessarily down, but I could tell that he, was kind of bummed about that squat. So I was just going to squat and be done. That was my plan, but I elected to get deadlift with him. My deadlift is kind of trash right now. I did use some figure 8 straps, which I'll kind of make a video on that. I kind of, it's one of those things I maybe have, I don't think that you should use figure apps for powerlifting deadlifts if you were going to go thumbless and then if you were going to let it hang in your fingertips. But I was today years old when I figured out that you could actually grab onto the bar and kind of pull the strap over. So you're able to kind of get a better grip on the bar and get more lat tension and have a more similar pull to what you would do. So John did some deadlifts. I don't know if he had a PR or not, but he ended up with something in the 500 range. My sumo pull is not great right now, but I was able to kind of muster up a 595. So basically an 800 squat, 600 deadlift. I'll take it. And then Steve, he kind of took all our lunch money, even with his conventional. So you can see that was about 500 pounds. I kind of knew it wasn't like that was kind of sloppy. I knew I wasn't going to have a good day. So I just said, hey. So Steve took about 595 for his warm-up. I just said, let me just do this now and kind of be done. But I was able to kind of stand up with 595. You can kind of see here. It didn't look as bad as it felt, but I could just kind of tell maybe my belt position wasn't right. Maybe, maybe I didn't have enough straps. My straps weren't tight enough, but just didn't feel great. But didn't look as bad. Again, maybe just not having fun, because the most I've done recently, I think it's like 565 conventional, so it's still quite a bit more than what I've kind of done, in recent months. And this is so you can see Steve's positioning off the floor was a little off there, but he was able to get like a 738 deadlift. I think it was like 335 kilos. Right, so that's 335 kilos was actually my last warm-up squat, and that was his top deadlift. And then I went to 365 kilo squat. But yeah, you can see I'm not sure how old John is, but he's a little bit younger. I think he might have been the youngest athlete there. And not that I'm, for me, myself and Katie I don't think we're old by any means, but we're just kind of old, relatively speaking, to, a lot of the people we're training with. So we're trying to keep up with a lot of these kids, but I was able to at least kind of showcase my squat strength and showcase, my experience. And I think a lot of that, we talk about, Elite FTS talks about live, learn, pass on. And I really try my best to kind of do that. So that looked actually better than his, I guess if that was, I'm just trying to kind of do the math in my head, but that was like a little bit, I think, whatever. It was like 716 and that was like 740. Something like that. Maybe it was 705 because we didn't have the competition collars on. So I think he was like a 30 to 40 pound jump. And this is a 540 or let's see, 220, maybe like a 240. So a good way to end the day. But yeah, this day was all about, and this is some of like the higher quality footage. So this day was really just all about showcasing what the team environment is like. So you can kind of see, Everyone's kind of, working together. It's not just about being a cheerleader. It's about kind of lending that positive energy. It's about spotting and loading for each other. And then you could also notice that, everyone's kind of paying attention to what's going on. And then we all got lunch after, lunch, brunch, whatever you want to call it. Some of us had breakfast. Some of us had lunch items. But I think it's important to kind of break bread with people. I think it's important to, just kind of be social in that way. So that's pretty important.